and we have, thanks everybody for joining today. And we have Sean Stanton with us from BioClinica. And I don't see Sean here. So, oh, there he is. Awesome. So thanks everybody for joining us today. We're the fourth week of the video webinar. And today, actually, we're going to be a little bit different than prior webinars. Essentially, we have Sean Stanton here, who's been he serves an operations role at BioClinica, but Sean was the CEO of Compass Research in the past, and Sean has been in the industry for a heck of a long time, and him and I have been very good friends for a while. Some people even think we look like we're brothers, just a better looking version. But
nice headset.
So essentially the plan for today is we're going to be going over great, not good study coordinators. And Sean I'm going to interview Sean, and I have a couple different questions here that I'm going to ask him to get his idea on what has worked really well for him to have those good study coordinators on board for his site in the past. Sean, anything else you want to add in the beginning?
No, I think it's great.
Perfect. It's a beautiful picture behind you.
The clock tower.
So the first question, Sean, study coordinators, just like a lot of staff members, are hard to find. In our experience, it seems to be what every site talks about as one of the hardest positions to retain. And I know there's a lot of different philosophies out there on what type of person should you hire or look for and hire based on their credentials and experience. So I know Sean's his site had upwards of over 100 research staff. So definitely he's done some great things in the past to understand what kind of expectations you should have for a study coordinator, what kind of person that should be, and among other things. So Sean, how do you do it? What creative strategies have you used that would help you identify how to find those great study coordinators?
I agree. It's one of the hardest things to find. And I think I say they don't grow on trees. I wish they did, but they obviously don't. I think a motto that we've always had. I come from the coordinator background, so I was a coordinator before we created this big site. So I think I truly understand what coordinators do. And I think that I always say that we look for the right character of the individual. So really looking for that type of person, not their skill set. And I think a lot of us are constantly looking for someone that checks every box as a coordinator, but that usually just doesn't exist. And the good ones are usually employed at other places, and trying to find those people are very challenging. So I think a lot of our success, I'd say 50% of our team, is probably grown from within. So I personally look for like some tangible things. I'd say their ability. I like an all-arounder coordinator. And when I say all-arounder, it's like they can recruit, they can retain, and they can record. You can call it 3 R's. So and typically you can't find a lot of people that can do all three. So at times you tend to have to start to compartmentalize. Answer your question.
Interesting. So that's good advice. So is there, and thinking of, I guess, breaking that down into a broad concept, is there any particular, I've personally seen that social workers have been consistently good coordinators. Anything else that you've seen?
Yeah, I'd say successful stories would be, I think, counselors. At times, master's level counselors, tend to be very strong with their ability to work with patients. So their ability to connect with the patient, and I think about the journey of when a patient comes in the screen to completion. It could be 2 years, could be 5 years. So it really is our ability to create a relationship with the patient without compromising the data collection. But I think counselors do an incredibly good job of doing that. And a lot of them will go into a master's program, and if they finish, like in the state of Florida, they have to be get a lot of hours of supervision, which is they're all vying for one or two positions, highly educated, and their expectation in salary is low. So that has been master's level counseling programs at the universities have been incredibly rewarding. Another one is the scribes. So there's a lot of temp agencies that actually have services for scribes, and you guys know half the scribes will go to medical school, the other half will be looking for their next step. So they have the medical training. Once again, salary expectations are low, and we tend to find a really good group of people in there. I think you'll find like 1 in 20 MAs that are like incredible, and we constantly always trying to look for that one person again. It's not like they're not there. Just I think you find a rich group in those other two groups. My opinion, and that's two good sources.
That's great advice. Yeah. I actually hadn't heard the scribe in the past, but it completely makes sense based on the type of experience that you would be looking for.
A good tip.
So when you think of the topics now, so let's say that I may have found a scribe, I may have found a social worker that are research naive. How do you, thinking of the onboarding process, how do you determine someone's, I guess, strengths within your typical kind of 3-month, and I'm going to use my quotes here, the 3-month, probationary period. How do you determine whether someone's going to be strong for you quickly?
Smaller site or a larger site, like a big massive site like ours, or like the typical average United States global site? I'll answer it differently.
Let's go both, because I imagine in looking at a lot of the attendees that are here, I definitely see bigger and smaller sites. So how about let's start with the smaller site.
Smaller site, definitely a lot of hands-on. Like you spend time, a lot of time invested up front, in the interview process, making sure that you have the right character. I think when they come in, even if they have some skill set to see patients, I would do a lot of supervision. Me personally, I like to probably, if I was back in the coordinator role, teaching a new coordinator, I would be probably doing the first 10 screens with the patient and then eventually handing them off past randomization. And if I had a confidence level in their ability to screen, then I'd let them slowly but surely screen and then disengage. Hands-on. And I'd rather put that time up front in the first month, because you'll know after 10 patients whether they're going to make it or not.
Interesting. Okay. And you're typically doing, in your reference here, you'd be doing like a weekly meeting, like a weekly check-in meeting with them?
Yeah, always Friday meetings, like to review all of the what you're doing. Now, if it's a completely green person, they may be shadowing the whole time, and then you just give them headers to fill out and make sure that they can actually complete the documentation correctly. And integrate as fast as possible. I spend the time up front, making sure that they can do all the pieces in the first probably 30 days. I'm very quick to disengage as well. So as soon as I have confidence, I let them fail, but I'm still there to catch them.
Okay. Well, so what would be different about the larger site to you?
So most facilities that are of the smaller size, the coordinator's roles are a little bit different than a larger site. So the coordinator does regulatory, they do recruitment, they do everything. And so there's a lot more to do when the person's forced into the all-round position where they're doing everything for the site. In a larger site, when it's mostly just patient to client, and manage the trial with the sponsor from beginning to end, I think there's the onboarding system like a company like we would have would be probably 3 months of teaching and training and education and SOPs and a lot of that documentation and making sure that even if they have the experience, they still have to learn our way. And so I think that that's more of a slower, gradual process before they actually start touching and seeing patients on their own. Just different systems.
Okay.
In education, like a syllabus,
Yeah. And since I saw a lot of people that seem to join late, just thanks for joining us. We're here with Sean Stanton. who had owned Compass Research. The site may look like the picture behind them. And so Sean has a variety of experience being a larger site with a number of coordinators. So we're going through a series of questions. So far, we've covered what types of people would you look for that may be perfect candidates for the coordinator position, and then also the startup period. The difference between a smaller site versus a larger site when it comes to what would that vetting process look like. And in a nutshell, Sean, it sounds like for a smaller site, it sounds a lot more personal, a lot more working independently with that particular individual, where you may know within a month whether that person's going to work out. And then a larger site, you could be looking up to 3 months, obviously probably a lot more process in place, more set expectations instead of the smaller business where you might be wearing a lot of hats.
Sure. Fair.
So tracking, I think that the biggest item always that comes to us is, well, how do we track the, your KPIs almost, your key performance indicators?
Yep.
What advice would you have for a site for weekly and monthly measurable criteria to track not only just, well, of course, hit on the financial performance, but also the quality?
For sure. I think at times, like when you're growing and taking on projects, you don't step back and actually create the metrics. I'd say it's probably going to be one of the most important things that you do. I think coordinator responsibilities, I kind of drop it into like categories. I say patient satisfaction, sponsor satisfaction, patient recruitment, retention, team. I lump quality into sponsor and patient satisfaction, because if they're not satisfied, the quality obviously isn't there. So that's kind of how I break that down. I like to think about it as like trying to create like a value system. And so like when the coordinator comes in and they need to know what their core responsibilities are, that's it. And then as you look at those, say, 5 or 6 items there, then you actually, I'm definitely big on metrics and numbers, and the whole field is. And so how do you measure each? I look at patient satisfaction and probably use the word, retention. Patients aren't staying involved with trials; they're more than likely dropping. And there could be things you can't control because the drug causes a side effect. But generally speaking, if they're violating, if 50% of the patients are dropping at visit 6, and it's not study related, it could easily be personality related. Sponsor satisfaction, I'd say that's in quality. It's monitoring visits, and it's like you get what you inspect, not what you expect. And typically we need to kind of drift away from reading the monitor letters and making sure you pretty much everything you need to know about how they're monitoring your coordinators is in there. And if you stop doing it and you go back to it, you usually find yourself a little bit angry at yourself for not doing it all the time. Quantity is like I hate focusing on, we're here to take care of patients, and that's how we really pride ourselves, because we're trying to cure illness and do all of this research for all these great things. We are running businesses, so and volume matters. It not only matters to us, it matters to the sponsors. And without actually having patients in the trial, it matters to the patients because their illness doesn't get cured. So screens, randoms, and total visits are critical measures. For us, screens per week, visits per week, randomizations per week, per month are critical metrics to make sure that we're trending in the right direction. And team is, you got to stay in touch. Too much.
And we did get a question in from Wendy Porter, and I will get to here in just a second. But Sean, just to continue to finish this concept on the, and again, I'm with you. You always hate to focus on the operation side, but what would be a weekly? You mentioned weekly screens, weekly randomizations. Is there any particular range or goal that you would set at a per coordinator level?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say 2 to 4. I'd say screens per month would be. I'd say 2 to 4 screens per week, 2 to 4 randoms per week, 10 to 20 occurrences, which would include your randoms and screens per week, are really good benchmarks. And it sounds low at times when you're thinking about two visits per day, but it's probably a realistic metric. We follow this for forever and a decade. And my expectation, if I was hiring Christian, is that he could do just my expectation would be 2 visits a day.
Okay. And you don't, so what would be helpful here is Compass Research, now BioClinica, does a range of therapeutic areas, but I've always known and thought of Sean as the kind of one of the Alzheimer's, key people out there when it comes to knowing stuff on research. So do you see the I would imagine therapeutically that goal may change.
It can, but when you're looking at me as the Alzheimer's person, we have a whole team of raters, so the coordinators don't rate in our system. So they're basically doing 2-hour occurrences. And then if you go to chronic low back pain or diabetes even, the chance of getting through a screen in under 2 hours is rare. We pretty much benchmark that across all trials. There's exceptions. You're going to be talking about vaccines or very simple, uncomplicated visits that are single visit studies. But if you just run the math on it, and if the average dollar per visit is say $1,000 per visit, and your expectation is that the coordinator does 10 of those a week, multiply it by 52, and then take 4 weeks off for vacation. The number is astronomical. So your expectation shouldn't be much more than that. And I think that everyone would grow their sites faster if they just kept their expectation on that. Personally, you might have a difference of opinion. Do you?
Yeah. Well, I think that's great input. I mean, this is part of I feel like the question that we get the most from any site always. Now, as we think of the good, not great study coordinators, is there any, do you typically make the coordinator aware of that goal right away? Right off the beginning, like this is one of the evaluation points, or no?
Before, when they're hired. I think they come to that conclusion together with you. Do you think that you can manage 2 visits per day, 10 visits per week? And I think that when you get that agreement and that kind of covenant, that when you're managing the numbers at the end of the month, I'd say at the end of the first month, or actually takes 3 months to get to scale. But after the 4th month, if we're still not there, and it constantly comes up with all of these reasons why I can't get there, the expectation is 2 a day. We agreed to it. So I usually allow for like a 2 strike. It's like first time I'll accept it. The second time, usually the person knows that they're not able to do this. And I think it's easier to have a challenging conversation that, we're just not lining up with my expectation and yours. So maybe there's a different role for you, and usually what you find is when you look at what they're good at, maybe they're really good at talking to the patient and they spend 8 hours a day with a visit that should take an hour. And that's helpful if you're maybe doing outreach or something like that, but maybe the role of the coordinator, if you need to see at least 2, that person can't do it.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I like setting the expectation up front. So then if we fail, we're failing together and it's not a surprise.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I could say that probably for every
job
position. Yeah.
That's what we do. You create a balanced scorecard for every role and create 2 or 3 value drivers. It's an incredible way to run your site. It empowers you.
Yeah, and just to bring it back to the others that are on the line, any questions that you have throughout the process, shoot them over to me. I know I'm a little bit delayed getting to Wendy, but I'm going to address that now. But any questions you have, shoot it over. I'll ask Sean, and would welcome that as well. So what is Wendy had asked, what is the minimum education requirement for CRCs in general? And I know now we're going back towards the beginning.
Me personally, this is a personal question, or industry-wide, I think everybody looks for a nurse or at least a bachelor's degree. To me, like I said from the opening comment, it's all about the character. And if I have the right person that I can train the skill set in, I'll take that every day of the week beyond the PhD. Now, obviously, that's where we get caught up looking for those great coordinators everybody hears about that, maybe they're uneducated. But it's, you can cut a lot of time off by going into that more educated, because I think you'll find more hits there. Am I making sense on that? I would say none if I found the right person, but I think you're going to yield a lot more when you're looking at scribes, or you're looking at someone with a bachelor's of science. They're kind of into what we're doing. A nurse, psychology major, that.
Yep. Completely agree.
I'd say piece is them wanting, believing in what we do. I think that I've seen the greatest outcomes with the people that really care about clinical trials, and it's like it becomes part of who they are, not just a job.
Yep. I completely agree. And based on you had mentioned this earlier, and I was starting to think about it as you alluded to it, because I could say the same success for our companies in a different lens. But it sounds like you've done a lot of promoting within as well. So what is your hierarchy structure like when it comes to the study coordinator? Do you have it where you break it down by ones and twos and threes, and the ones potentially do this, and the twos do this, and the threes do this? Or what is that like?
Like rating them as the resumes come in?
No, well, this is more for us. It could be for someone that's just starting, but more so if you have a hierarchy structure.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 1, 2, 3 said they can grow and make more money. Yeah, they'll start in they might even start as a research assistant, like almost everybody, for the first month or two.
Yep.
And then they'll graduate into coordinator 1, 2, 3, and then you look for lead positions. But yeah, absolutely. I think you can usually see people's skill sets, like where they become better at maybe recruitment, or they're better at data, and then that person can move into regulatory or QC or QA, or I think that learning and growing the company from the coordinator role, it's a basic element. It's a PI and a coordinator. That's every trial. So as you get bigger and you start compartmentalizing, I like when the coordinator starts specializing in different areas, and you kind of grow the company off of that.
I agree. And shifting to the team, I know we've talked very independent now on more a study coordinator kind of working by themselves, but I'm just going to bring this up because I happen to be talking to a site Friday who has 3 different teams, and they're teams of 3, and they all share responsibilities amongst that team of 3. So some people are the leads, while others are the support roles. Some people are supporting and doing outreach, while others might be more doing the data, adding the data into the source of some sort. So have you ever heard of that? Do you guys do that at all?
Yeah, we do it both. It's that specialization. Like where we'll data management team, regulatory. Yeah, when the site starts to get scalable, you can see more patients as you can kind of break each one of those pieces off. So both and we also break it off into therapeutic teams. So like you'll look at, some people want to excel and be inside of like the Alzheimer's neurodegeneration space, pain, phase 1. So I think you start seeing therapeutic alignment with your teams, and then it offers a better quality back to your sponsors. And definitely on the regulatory and recruitment, all of those things, I think I use the word compartmentalization. So you compartmentalize regulatory, data, lab. And at the beginning, when you have 4 people, you don't need to do that. But if you want to go to 10 or 15 or 20 coordinators, someone has to be responsible for recruitment. Someone will have to be responsible for data. And it's hard pieces because coordinators never like letting go of anything. But when they find someone that can do that individual piece better than them, it becomes a real synergy. So it takes some time, but getting there, it's worth the time.
Yeah, and that's obviously something that larger sites are probably going to be
taking into
consideration more so.
Yeah, you can't scale it you couldn't scale with 100 coordinators just coordinating. I think it'd be really, really challenging. The demands are too high on the teams.
Agreed.
Is that center in the
Renee has a question. Renee has a question. It says, is there a workload assessment tool that you can recommend to help come up with a score for CRC performance?
Score, nothing that's quantitative on a number from 0 to 10 or something like that. We use a tool. It's kind of like a scorecard that we fill out every week, and it has those key elements. The ones are, it has screens, it has randoms, it has total visits, it has query resolution, like basically how you can get those query resolution notes from the data management systems, and then the time to get all data inputted into the system. They have to do it within 48 hours. We're trying to get it to 24 to get it almost to real time. And if they don't get that in, then they don't get credit for that visit. So when you're looking at their total visit, if the quality suffers or the query rates are high, then they don't get credit for the quantity of visits they do. That's about it. Is what we do with those metrics. I think we the manager of the clinic definitely meets with the monitors at every visit. So there's a PI, and you can get a lot of feedback there too, just the intangibles. But I don't know of a scorecard, a quantitative scorecard.
Okay.
Cool idea.
So there's two things that Renee did ask if you'd be willing to share any details on it, and then we have a Morale that said that ACRP just released a quantitative score today, which has 8 domains and 114 points. So I have not seen that, but I do happen to know too that there's a gentleman named David Moran, Dr. David Moran, who's actually going to be speaking with me at Magi, who has some sort of scoring card as well. So anyone that's going to Magi, you definitely sit on that presentation. We do have another question, and I'm going to try to leave 1 minute after this question because I have one more question for you myself. Can you? So Morale actually asked, can you repeat your metric for small site? So the number of encounters versus the number of randomizations.
Yep.
And
you ready?
Repeating that one.
Slow. 2 to 4 screens per week per coordinator. 2 to 4 randoms per week, and 10 to 20 total visits per week per coordinator. And you like the query, the query resolution is less than expectation by the sponsor. You set that agreement up with the monitor and the sponsor as they come in before the study starts. Monitor it, with the national averages, and then 48 hours, all data is inputted into the data management system. Complete.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Sean. Well, hey, on a less serious note, we do appreciate your time today. But how about any lessons learned? Have you ever had any good lessons learned stories for us when it comes to study coordinators?
I'd say be open-minded, because sometimes you just don't know. Sometimes you can go in with a preconceived idea of who someone may be or may not be. So I'll just do a quick little story on it, and I'll do it fast. Because my partner actually brought in a friend that he had met in the community, and it was the son of the friend. And as I came into the office, I saw this boy or young man, and I would say I was thinking, like, who is this guy? And he's like, "Hi, I'm Scott Paul Macy," and I was like, "Hey, you must be Craig's friend's son." And I looked to my right, and I saw his mom there, and I was thinking, like, this is why's your mom here? And I found out that he's actually a summer intern under age, under 18. And I kind of went into the thought process thinking, like, how is this ever going to work? And I ran into HR. I'm like, can we hire people under 18? He said he would work for free. And I think that I kind of stopped myself and really thought, you got to give someone, the time. And then when I sat down and actually talked to Scott, I found out that, I'd probably be working for him someday. And I probably will.
And
he's gone on to create, an amazing career for himself. He can do anything. So I'd say be open-minded, even if you see someone who looks a little underage, in your office.
Well, hey, we appreciate you giving Scott a shout out. And now that all the years have passed, he's definitely turned into, someone that that we're all reporting to. Well, hey, Sean, appreciate it a lot. Thanks for coming and talking to us about, good, not great, great, not good study coordinators. And I know there's a couple different follow-up questions here. So any questions that you do have, please reach back out to us. We can get any information from Sean. We can link you with Sean if he has any details to send over.
Yeah, anytime.
Awesome, Sean. Well, hey,
Okay, buddy.
we appreciate your time, and enjoy your rest of your day.
You too, buddy. See you soon.
Thanks, guys. Join us next week. Bye.